Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Stray Pixels podcast, where we are talking about science adventure this week. And as far as I'm aware, that means I need one of these, right?
Oh,
Right?
right. Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. We also need a phone setup, and you need to. Do you live near a CRT TV store?
A really
I do
big
not,
one, especially.
unfortunately.
No.
That's like the important part.
For the audio
Well, I
listeners,
mean-
I'm holding a microwave.
Yeah. The microwave, the phone wave, name subject to change. Steins Gate is definitely the most famous of the science adventure games. It had an anime adaptation that was really good, and the others do not.
Robotics
well.
Notes was pretty good.
It was. I've watched it myself, and as a huge Robotics Notes fan, I will say that the first half is really good, and then they run out of episodes, and it gets rushed.
Okay, we're good. We're gonna get to it. So,
And then on the flip side, Occultic Diamond was finished before Occultic Diamond was finished.
Oh yeah, that's going to be fun to explain.
So, this week we're doing a bit of a more brief episode, just because of the time that we were recording. We weren't really able to get the logistics worked out to have everyone fully here and conscious. So, out of respect to those of us in a different time zone, I am just kind of making the executive decision to only do one part this episode. Next week, we should be back to our regular length. But if you see that this episode is like half as long as most of them, that's why. As usual, I am your host, Noisy Pixel staff writer, Colin Buchanan, and I am joined by our senior editor, Pyre Kavanaugh, and one of our
frame.
there you go. And one of our newest hires, Madison Burge.
Hi, it's good to be here.
Simultaneously new and also somehow the best. What's so good about Ryder? Because that was a thing we did.
Yeah, I liked those. Those were fun.
So since this is your first time being here, Madison, do you want to tell us a little bit about yourself?
Well, you might be able to hear from my accent that I'm Australian. I sort of got into Noisy Pixel via Pyre. We're good friends, and we met talking about visual novels online. So we're definitely huge science adventure fans. So I'm glad this is the podcast I'm starting with.
To be clear, Madison is one of 9 people that we recently hired, and the only one, as far as I'm aware, that got here by nepotism. So.
Yeah, that's fair.
Okay, so anyway, I decided that I still wanted to be present, even though I'm not super familiar with science adventure, because otherwise I felt like it was going to be 3 people here, just kind of talking from an insider perspective, and this episode would be completely incomprehensible to anyone that was not already intimately familiar. So I am the one of us who is definitely not an expert on this. I have watched the anime for Steins Gate, for Robotics Notes, and regrettably for Steins Gate Zero. And that is about all of my experience. As a critic, I have spoken on, I think, all 3 of them before. But obviously I don't have the broader context of the universe into which they fit. I just know about them. So, Pyre, do you want to discuss your sort of journey with science adventure?
Okay, so let's break this down. Starting with my journey specifically, I, like many, started with Steins Gate because, as you do, a friend threw it at me because they thought I would be interested in it because it was all nerdy and shit, and they were interested in it because they saw a bunch of swimsuit pictures and thought that would be entirely relevant to the story, and then found out that it wasn't, but they stuck around anyway, and then threw it at me, and then I played through it, and wow, yeah, it was really good. And now there's an entire mental blank on what the hell happened. Wow, when did I play video games?
Rub those brain cells together.
No.
Brain fog.
It's okay. You'll get there.
Oh.
You'll get there.
So you played Steins Gate.
Right.
What did you do after that?
After Steins Gate, well, God, really, the concept is you go into the anime, then you go into the other existing science adventure games, which were at the time,
At the time, it would have been
Chaos
like
Child.
Chaos Child and nothing else. Yeah.
Yeah. So Chaos Head did exist as a fan translation, which is the original first title in the Science Adventure series. Science Adventure itself, developed by Mages, which was largely made up of Kid staff after the company dissolved.
Kid being Kindle Imagine Develop, which you might know from Ever 17, which was sort of a big cult hit in America because it was one of the first visual novels to get a proper English translation, and thus it's an entry point for a lot of people. And Science Adventure isn't the only series that spun off of the Kid games, because that's where Kotaro Uchikoshi, the Zero Escape guy, used to work. So a lot of visual novel series we have today sort of trace back to Kindle Imagine Develop.
And one of the assistant writers on Ever 17, I believe, or he was on other Infinity games as well?
Was no, he? Yeah. I don't
was Hayashi on all of them?
I don't remember, but he was definitely part of it.
One of the writers within the Infinity games was Naotaka Hayashi. If I got that name right, I hope I did.
I think you did.
Who would then go on to be the main writer for Chaos Head and Steins Gate and Robotics Notes. The company Mages was formed by Chiyomaru Shikura.
Yeah,
I think it was Shikura.
I don't know.
Chiyomaru, who is an insane man who did all the openings himself and he hired some singers he likes to do them, to sing
He's
them.
a really great lyricist. I like his openings.
Sorry, if you have more, go ahead.
Sorry, yeah, otherwise, but until relatively recent, every science adventure fan has been basically looking into other supplementary materials that just floated around the internet, like obscure manga translations done by usually Steiner or Blickwinkle, whose names I've forgotten, or eventually. No, sorry,
It's okay.
Can't finish my. Anyway. I really liked Chaos Child when I played it, and now I like it less. I am the one with the reviews on the site currently for the science adventure games. So I've written all of those reviews for good and bad.
Madison, do you want to sort of give what your journey was?
Yeah, I mean, like we've been saying, mine was pretty similar. My first exposure was there was a Let's Player I liked who covered Steins Gate, and I basically just watched that Let's Play, and that's how I first experienced the visual novel, which is a bit wild. And then I sort of stumbled around trying to find other games, and by the time I was like really getting into the series, and actually played Steins Gate for myself, a few more of the games were out. So before Chaos Child, I played Steins Gate 0. The way they've been released in the West means that any science adventure fan is probably going to end up playing them wildly out of order, which is a shame because they really benefit from playing in release order. But I eventually went back and did Chaos Head and Robotics Notes when it eventually came out recently. And yeah, I really love the series because, like, even though I experienced Steins Gate via a Let's Play series, when I read it myself, I was still like on the edge of my seat because I think Hayashi is a really good writer at like tension and thrillers, and setup and payoff is one of the biggest strengths of the series. Like, you'll reread it and realize there's like setup for something that happens towards the end, like right in the opening hours, and it's really good.
All right. So speaking as an outsider who's trying to also make sure that people who are even more outsider can access this episode, what is science adventure? Or at the very least, how are these things connected?
So it's a series of visual novels set in the modern day, very sci-fi and focused on otaku culture, quite predominantly. But it's definitely less pandering than you'd think, because it does examine some of the darker sides of otaku stuff, and that's sort of a through line as well. But the main thing to know is that if it's got that little semicolon in the title in the middle, it's a science adventure game, and keeping track of the right play order can be a bit tough because each sub-series has its own title. So Chaos Head focuses on one cast of characters, Steins Gate focuses on a different cast of characters, but they're all sort of connected by a overarching plot line about the Committee of 300, the classic conspiracy theory about a shadowy group of people controlling the world, and sort of the fight against that group and trying to free the world from their various plans, which take different forms depending on the entry.
Yeah, I think that the one exception to the main exception to the semicolon rule is Myself Yourself, a visual novel written by Takumi Nakazawa, who also worked for Kid.
Yeah, that's the unrelated semicolon game. I think when I'm trying to give an overview of this series, I'm giving it very scattershot and poorly. And I think it might just be better to sort of talk about them in order, because one thing that's kind of interesting is that the two upcoming science adventure games you might have heard of, Chaos Head Noah and then Anonymous Code, are basically on opposite ends of the series timeline, just because it's taken so long for the first game to actually come out in English.
Chaos Head Noah, literally the first game. Well, technically Chaos Head is the first game. Chaos Head Noah is an updated re-release of the first game that used funding obtained from the first game to add additional routes and bits and pieces to the overarching story.
But by updated re-release, we mean what the game was intended to be, because the existing fan translation is for the PC release of Chaos Head, and that's just the base game, just Noah. And while I would say it's fairly complete, once I managed to read through Noah myself, I was like, wow, why was this not in the base game? That's insane.
So for someone who might be even less in the loop, can you explain? So we've got Chaos Head, Chaos Child, Chaos Head Noah. Now we're introducing non-mainline titles, and we've also got Steins Gate Zero and Robotics Notes Elite. Can you sort of explain how these games relate to each other as well?
Well, so Noah. Oh, sorry.
No.
Noah is just the updated version of Chaos Head. Chaos Child is sort of a sequel that focuses on similar themes, but kind of like Steins Gate to Chaos Head, it focuses on a different cast of characters. And as for Robotics Notes Elite, that's the third mainline entry, and Elite is just the updated version, similar to Noah. Okay. But the changes are less extensive. It's mostly the same, apart from some visual polish.
As a result, we don't actually have the original Robotics Notes in English, or technically we won't have the original Chaos Head in English, but we'll have the better versions. So Chaos Head Noah, Steins Gate, and then Robotics Notes Elite. Those are your main three titles, and everything else sort of derivatives of them. So there are two spin-off titles for the Chaos games that are under Love Choo Choo, which are entirely different titles that we have not gotten in English, and I kind of don't want them.
I said earlier that the science adventure games are less pandering than you'd think for a sort of sci-fi modern day otaku kind of focused game. Love Choo Choo throws that out the window. They're pandering games, and
they're fan service titles, basically.
Oh yeah, so much fan service to the point of being kind of uncomfortable. And it's like, they have some good character moments and some important plot details for sort of that overarching plot that carries between games. But you have to play Love Choo Choo to get to them. So is it even worth it?
God. Steins Gate got in itself, aside from a million supplementary materials, it has its main additional titles of Darling, My Darling's Embrace, which is essentially Love Choo Choo, but what if Love Choo Choo was not garbage?
Yeah, so like a Chaos Head, each game sort of focuses on a different sci-fi concept, and Chaos Head was focused on psychic powers. So, you know, this whole thing of like delusions and illusions and stuff like that, which meant that the fan servicey pandering games got really fan servicey and pandering because they can just do, you know, like eroticized fantasies as part of the plot. But My Darling's Embrace actually has to try and be a more proper fan service romance game with less like, you know, anime nonsense and more just like, let's put these characters in cute situations. I would say it probably ends up being less plot important, but it's at least enjoyable. And it is out in English, so check it out if you want.
And then we have Steins Gate Zero, the visual novel loosely based upon a series of 3 light novels that had a manga adaptation before it got cancelled, and now there is a manga adaptation of Steins Gate Zero in the line, as well as Steins Gate Zero having an anime, because Steins Gate is their moneymaker somehow still.
Yeah, it became the most popular. I mean, even in English, even just among anime communities, Steins Gate is the one everyone knows. But I think to properly explain why Steins Gate Zero is the way it is, you sort of need to move on to the 4th mainline entry, Chaos Child, which was sort of a follow-up to Chaos Head in a lot of ways. And when Paya said that there were 2 Love Choo Choo games, it's because one of them is associated with Chaos Child. And what's annoying about Chaos Child is like, because they released it in English before Chaos Head, they marketed it as a sort of standalone sequel, but it's really not, and you really should play Chaos Head first. The way these games have been released in English is kind of a mess. And speaking of messes, they decided to make sure Chaos Child was an Xbox exclusive in Japan. So they did that, and obviously, you know, no one in Japan has an Xbox. It underperformed, and they were like, oh god, it underperformed. Robotics Note also underperformed because it wasn't Steins Gate. What do we do? Slap something Steins Gate together. Let's recycle this concept we have of a Steins Gate light novel and sort of slap it into a visual novel format and reuse as much like stuff as we can from Chaos Child. And that's Steins Gate Zero.
As a result, it's if you already like science adventure stuff, it'll be up your alley. If you have watched a couple of good anime adaptations like the original Steins Gate, and that's about it, you will go into Steins Gate Zero, and
yeah,
the anime is better than the visual novel. And that's saying something.
I have very strong. This is at this point we've entered things that I actually know about.
Yeah, the Steins Gate Zero anime.
The anime and the visual novel were, so the visual novel is based on basically a series of light novels that were released as supplementary material. The anime and the visual novel of Steins Gate Zero were both announced, I believe, at the same time. But the anime took 2 years to actually come out, and it was commemorated by, they rebroadcast the original Steins Gate Zero, and then they ended the penultimate episode with a different ending that leads into Steins Gate Zero, and then Steins Gate Zero is effectively an interquel between the second to last and the last episodes of the original anime.
It's a bit confusing to describe because Steins Gate's main sci-fi focus is time travel, which results in Steins Gate Zero being an interquel, sequel, and prequel, depending on how you define it.
I have really strong feelings about Zero. I have very strong feelings about Zero.
Yeah.
So in terms of the reception of the anime, because obviously I went into it as someone that was just familiar with the original Steins Gate anime, it's about twice as long as it needs to be, if not more than that. And it's kind of insulting a lot of the time in terms of how it treats the characters of the original series. The moment that I kind of gave up on it was, again, because we were involving time travel. We travel into the distant future of this specific world line, kill off the transgender character, and then go back in time, and it doesn't end up mattering.
That's actually better than how it was executed in the visual novel.
Yeah, so the thing is, you're like complaining about Steins Gate Zero anime for being weak and just sort of all over the place, and like the anime streamlined things to prevent it from being even more all over the place. Like Steins Gate Zero really is just something they slapped together because the series was in a bit of a rough spot around then, and
it's kind of funny. It's kind of funny because the visual novel got like really good reviews, and I'm assuming that that's just inertia from the rest of the series. People are like, "Oh, it's a sequel to Steins Gate. It must be good."
Yeah, like the visual novel has some really good ideas, and like honestly, one of the routes in the visual novel was like, yeah, that was worth the price of admission, but otherwise, it's a really messy game. And like the ending is done in a weird way where you kind of need to watch the anime afterwards to understand it. Like, I don't know why they did it like that.
And it's kind of
extra fun. The whole concept is, how did alternate timeline Okabe figure out how to do the cool thing to save the day? Well, the answer that the Steins Gate Zero tells you is an even more future Okabe came to save the day.
And they just kick the problem down the line. Like, why they? Oh, I could complain about this for hours, but
no, I get
doing
it.
So would require to actually like fully explain the plot, and we're not doing that.
Like, I think that it's just like inertia from it. Be like people seem to have enjoyed it. It's like property inertia from being the sequel to one of the most popular anime ever created.
Yeah, that's kind of how I ended up feeling about Chaos Child too. Like, there are reasons to enjoy it, and I'm slowly coming around to why people enjoy it. But personally, I see people calling it better than Steins Gate, and I'm like, that feels like just hype train.
Just for reference, Steins Gate the anime is, in terms of aggregate score, the 4th highest rating anime of all time on my anime list, and the 13th most popular.
Yeah, and you want to know how they did that? They did that by the lead writer of the visual novel was also in charge of the anime, and I mentioned before he's really good at tightly paced plot and reveals, and he knew his script inside out, so he knew exactly what he could cut from the visual novel to make it short enough to work as an anime while still working as a really good anime.
And it manages to have 24, it has the 2 core, so it has a bit of time to fill out the meat. Unlike the Chaos Child anime, where they went back to doing 12 episodes and then still tried to squeeze in all the routes.
It's insane because like a lot of people saw the announcement a year and a half ago of the Muv-Luv alternative anime, and we're like, oh god, how are they gonna do that in 13 episodes? And the answer was they didn't, but even what we got was still a cluster.
Chaos Child anime is really great because it opens with a prologue episode that also has to recap Chaos Head, because the Chaos Head anime just cut some things, and it made Chaos Child work less. Why is this series such a mess?
So speaking of the series being a mess, before we get too low on time, what the hell is happening now? Because everybody's getting really excited and I have no idea.
Okay, Anonymous Code has been trying to come out for like 5 years or longer. I don't know, but they keep rewriting it and pushing it back and delaying it. And also, technically, it was originally going to be part of a sister series to Science Adventure called the Science Visual Novel series, except then they backpedaled on that and said, oh, no, that was just our attempt at rebranding the name for English-speaking countries where visual novel and adventure game are more synonymous. And then Occultic 9, which was also science visual novel, never really came out. It's like Steins Gate Zero, where it came out in multiple formats, and none of them are finished.
Occultic 9 takes the form of a light novel series, which has 3 light novels and is unfinished, an anime that takes the really cool idea of having multiple viewpoints and scrapping that for just one main viewpoint and is unfinished, and it still happens to have a 12-episode anime adaptation, which is more complete than either of the other 2 stories.
Like, the Occultic 9 is baffling because in the original version of the script, Steins Gate was a video game that the main character really enjoyed, but then they were like, oh no, we're retconning that. And so they promised, oh yeah, we'll make a new version of the visual novel that, changes everything. And that never really got finished. And so Anonymous Code is another science visual novel game, except now it's probably science adventure, and it's been trying to come out for years.
Anonymous Code was originally announced in 2015 with a fancy trailer promising like a next couple of years announcement the following year. My phone ringtone has been the song from that main TGS trailer since that came out.
But to summarize it, I think the reason a lot of people are so excited for Anonymous Code is not just that it's finally coming out, but because if they land it right, it's going to be the end of this really messy period for science adventure. Hayashi stepped down as lead writer. Apparently, I've heard his reason given was that he was getting tired of writing conspiracy thriller stories. He liked his characters too much and was tired of putting them through the ringer. But they've got Hayashi back. He's one of the lead writers for Anonymous Code, and that instills me with more confidence than literally anything else they could do for the game. So if this goes well, it might be the best science adventure yet. And if it goes poorly, the series might just explode. I don't know. So my hype is more like a bit of a prayer.
Pyre, go ahead.
Nothing. Nothing. And with all that, we haven't actually touched upon everything because there's so much supplementary content.
Yeah, Steins Gate, since the time travel story, introduced the series' foundation of, multiple universes, sort of similar to the many worlds theory. And that sort of opened the gates for a lot of spin-off content that's like this game, but to the left. So a lot of the spin-off content is like canon in the sense that it takes place in an alternate world, but not canon in the sense that it'll affect the ongoing plot. A lot of them are very fun, but it is such a mess trying to work out what's important. And I sympathize with anyone getting into the series, but just play Chaos Head Noah, Steins Gate, Robotics Notes, Chaos Child. Those 4 will give you a good starting point. And at that point,
you'll also have consumed everything that's guaranteed to have merits.
Yeah. Like at that point, if you've gotten through those 4 games, you'll have been with the series long enough that by then you'll probably have worked out the mess of the other side content like Zero and Darling and Love Choo Choo. So I'll just tell you to start with those 4 and then work it out or something.
I'd say start with Chaos Head Noah and just call it. But Chaos Head Noah comes out at the end of the year in English. So start later.
Yeah, like Anonymous Code is, I guess, the 5th main line. I don't even know if Steins Gate Zero counts. I don't know. You should ask someone else. Don't ask me. Just try to play them in as close to release order as you can. And by that, I mean Japanese release order because the Western release order is a mess.
Well, I mean, like, the good news now is that it feels like Science Adventure now is in the position that Trails is going to be as of next year, where you finally have like all the games that matter and you can play them in the order that they came out in Japan, as opposed to jumping all over the place.
I'm going to start with Hajimari.
That's why Noah is really exciting, not just because I think it's one of the best ones in the series, but because it is the definitive starting point. You could sort of start with Steins Gate because it's like barely self-contained enough that you can do it on its own, which is why a lot of people got in through the anime adaptation.
I have the PS3 version of the visual novel was a PlayStation Plus title a million years ago, so I actually own it. I've just never played
That's
it.
Awesome. Yeah, the visual novel is really great, even if you've seen the anime, because they cut it down for time, and the stuff that is in the full experience is pretty worth seeing. But Chaos Head Noah is finally coming out, and it's like the definitive starting point. Not like with Steins Gate, where you sort of can start with it if you want, but like Noah is the foundation on which the rest of the series rests. Like Chaos Child is obviously a direct follow-up to it, but even games like Robotics Notes and most probably Anonymous Code seriously rely on Chaos Head Noah. So it's a great place to start. It's the perfect place to start. It's the intended place to start.
And Foundation is great, but the house could still fall over.
Oh, please don't explode. I really need Anonymous Code to be good.
Is that your final thought there?
Yeah, I need it to be good or I will get sad.
Pyre, any final thoughts from you?
No, we're pretty good.
All right. Yeah, I want good things for a fandom that's clearly been jerked around quite a lot. I can relate, speaking as, a proponent of several series that at this point are most famous for questions of what the fuck order do I play these games in.
I'm going to start with Hajimare just for fun.
I'm still, you know what? I pitched to Bailey an absolutely bonkers ass April Fool's article that he decided not to write, and I'm still mad about it. I told Bailey that his April Fool's piece for this year should be why you should start with Trails of Cold Steel 4.
Okay, but the problem with that as an April Fool's video is someone's gonna find it and go, okay. Like, oh.
Well, because like that was a stupid talking point that NIS America came up with and got the Falcom president like to roll with was Trails of Cold Steel 3 is an excellent place to start this series. You don't need to play anything before you play this game, because they had no interest in marketing the rest of the series that was all owned by Xseed, and now they have to explain why Crossbell is necessary after they already said it wasn't. So
yeah.
At least we're not in that really embarrassing situation here.
Yeah, like when the English release of Chaos Child is like, oh yeah, you can jump in. It's sort of one of those standalone sequels with a new cast. Do not believe their lies.
All right. And that's going to be it for us. I want to thank you guys for listening to another episode of the Stray Pixels podcast. We post every Tuesday on your podcast app of choice and on the Noisy Pixel YouTube channel. What is your guys' level of familiarity with science adventure? Have you seen Steins Gate the anime? Have you seen Steins Gate Zero the anime? What the hell did you think of Occultic 9? Because all I remember is the girl with the giant boobs. Let us know in the comments on YouTube. If there's anything
the cool parts.
If there's anything you'd like us to talk about in a future episode, you can leave a comment under this video or talk to us on Twitter. You can find me, Colin, at the Arcane Ranger, Pyre at Pyre Loop, that's PYRELOOP, and Madison at Mads_in_0, that's 0 spelled out, or the site itself at Noisy Pixel News. The Stray Pixels podcast is brought to you by NoisyPixel.net. Noisy Pixel is run by a group of gamers who work hard to bring you the latest news, reviews, previews, podcasts, and more. Please like, subscribe, and follow to keep up with our future content, and join our community Discord server where you can come talk nerdy with us. Thank you guys for watching. We'll see you next week. Bye.